the polluted waters of Nairobi River may be turning city boys, men and pigs impotent. This is according to a study conducted by the University of Nairobi. The research by the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine also shows that the same waters could lead to the development of ovarian and breast cancer in women and prostate cancer in men. This morning, we are delighted to be joined in studio by the research team that carried out the study as we analyze the impact of the research findings on the health of the residents of Nairobi. Our guests are Professor Henry Mutembei, Dr. Ambrose Kipyegon, and Dr. Victor Tsuma, all from the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, University of Nairobi. My colleague Bernard Maranga will also be speaking to officials from the National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA, and the National Environmental Complaints Committee. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, we will get to the details of the study in a moment, but please tell us what informed that particular research. Who do we start with? We'll start with Professor Henry Mutembei. So what informed this research?
Thank you very much. Before I start, I want to say I'm also the director of Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies. What informed this study is actually the concerns that were reported to the clinic of the veterinary hospital in the faculty, the University of Nairobi, that the farmers were experiencing problems with their pigs. And the main problem was basically that the piglets that were born from the sows, the sow is the female pigs.
Yes.
They failed to distend their testes, the scrotum.
So they had hernias?
No, they were only having either one testicle or having no testicle at all.
Okay.
So in technically they are called monokid or cryptokid. So it is something that sometimes occurs, but now they see the incidence is high.
More often.
So they came to us in the university and said, wait a minute, we need to check what is happening here.
Okay. Now, it's been quite a while since the university released this kind of study, and universities in this country, have been criticized recently for dwindling research studies. What would be your comment? We hardly ever get to hear such, information like this, and an institution like a university is expected to be conducting research periodically and giving us facts. What has been happening?
Usually, I would say the university is engaged in research. It's only that sometimes research is not given the emphasis that it needs to have in this country. But on the other hand, the other limiting factor has been funds. And in particular, we had suspicion that when the Nairobi River or the rivers are highly polluted, they can easily have chemicals that can affect something like fertility or even lead to what you have said, cancers and that. But, the drivers of research must come from a concern, and also there has to be investment into it.
Excellent. So let's get into this research. So maybe Dr. Tsuma, you could tell us what kind of work went into this research. How long has this process taken?
I'll just briefly say what happened, and then I think Dr. Kipyegon will elaborate more, because he was the one who was doing this study for his PhD. But basically, as Prof. Mutembei has said, farmers complained piglets were having a high incidence of cryptokidism. And then we suspected that it could be a chemical in the waters of Nairobi River, because the affected animals were the ones that were being raised on the banks of Nairobi River. So just in brief, a study was conducted where samples were collected, testicular samples were collected from pigs that were raised around Nairobi River. And then water was also collected and fed to mice. And another group of mice that was a control was fed clean water. But Dr. Kipyegon maybe can say that in more details.
Excellent. So, Dr. Kipyegon, tell us about your research.
Thank you very much. Our research started early last year, about February 2016. And it started, like a professor said, with complaints from farmers, and then we went to their residences to see for ourselves what was happening and interview more farmers so that we get the numbers and see if really the complaint was widespread.
Right.
And we really found that it was not only in one place, that the farmers we interviewed in one of the informal settlements reported really that they saw the retained testes, as we call it. We moved to another and another. I think we sampled about 3 informal settlements.
So which informal settlements are we talking about here?
We went to parts of Kibera, parts of Dandora, and parts of Mathare.
Okay.
Because we were following along the course of Nairobi River.
Of the river.
Yeah, of the Nairobi River.
Okay.
And after that, after we found out that really it's a problem, then we wanted to follow up and see what would be the effect now on a grown post-pupato pig. So we purchased some of the pigs which were assessing the polluted river water.
Yes.
And we harvested their testicles and took them to the lab for histological analysis. That's looking at in detail.
So you actually, you cut it all up and you dissect and analyze.
Yeah, and analyze at a cellular level.
Yes.
And we found that at a cellular level, really, that some of the cells were affected, and which would lead to even affecting spermatogenesis, the process of sperm maturation, production and maturation, and that. And then after that, we went back to the communities to collect the sample, the water sample, and then we
tested the water.
Not at that point. We tested the water later on.
Okay.
But then we wanted to really see that actually what we are seeing in the pig
yes,
is really from the water and not from any other source.
Or you had to eliminate everything else.
Yes. So we took the water to the lab and fed it to experimental mice.
Okay.
In the lab. So we had a group of mice consuming this water daily for 2 months, and another group consuming clean water. So they were fed on commercial feed, but then the water was either contaminated for one group or clean for another group. Then after 60 days,
yes,
we removed the testes also from these 2 groups and subjected to the same examination like what we did for the pig,
right?
Looking at the testes at a cellular level.
Okay.
And we found there's similar findings like we saw in the pig are also is what we saw also in the mice. Therefore, after that, we went back also to the same informal settlement to test now this chemical which is in the water. What is it? What is this chemical that is causing such damage in the testes of the boar and the mice?
Yes.
So we then took water samples to the lab for analysis to find out what chemicals were in the water.
Okay, so that's what happened.
Yes, that's
what
happened.
The people that I didn't know we had pig farmers in the informal sector, because I know I have kept pigs myself, and some of the things you're saying about the test is not either descending or not,
yes,
I had experience, but I didn't know. So we actually have a lot of pig farmers in the informal sector, like you said, Mathare, Kibera.
Yeah.
They have many pigs.
It's actually a coping mechanism. It's urban farming.
So they actually literally have a pig pen, and the water they just go and collect from the river.
Mostly their pigs are free range.
Aha.
Yeah, they're just housed at night.
So it's not somebody who has and is okay.
No. They are housed at night, and in the day they walk around looking for food, either in drainage canals for water. So you find them actually inside the water trying to look for food and there. And that's how they access this water. It's not that, it's very rare that you find someone going to the river to...
Because that is my concern. That's what we wanted to know. So is this water, so for the sake of the pigs, because they are foraging for food.
Yes.
So now when we're bringing in human beings,
yes,
are human beings consuming water from the river?
Yes, technically. Yeah.
Okay.
But first and foremost, urban farming is on the rise in Nairobi, and it is actually experienced a lot. Now, how then do we bring in the human nexus there?
Yes.
One, the humans consume these pigs.
Aha, the human connection now.
Yes.
You know, when you say nexus, we're wondering
the
what is a nexus.
Yeah. So they consume the pigs.
Yes.
Number two, this Nairobi River.
Yes.
Along the river banks, if you look at Nairobi River all the way from the upper, the middle, and the lower towards Ruai,
Yes.
there's a lot of also other crops
growing is true.
Growing
Yeah.
around there. Sukuma wiki,
Your domas, everything.
domas and everything.
Yeah.
So these chemicals,
Oops.
now they will find themselves into these foods, and this is what the human beings are eating. The other thing is we should ask ourselves what is contaminating this river, which is also the runoff from the settlements. Even if you have your crop near the river itself, whatever is contaminating that river is also passing through the crops. So it's still absorbing it. It necessarily doesn't have to be picked from the river itself.
Right.
So this is the connection now.
Okay.
Now, what is causing this problem in pig itself that is accessing that river water, then it will be the same that will be affecting the human being, either through the crops
or through the animals.
The animals, or in general, even that contact with also those chemicals themselves, because there is also the human contact. The two chemicals that were basically we tested.
Right.
It is what we call the estrogen-like.
They are not estrogen, they are
They're
similar to.
estrogen-like.
Okay, similar to.
Yeah, similar to. And mostly they are called phenol and phenolic compounds,
Okay.
which originate from the household waste. They also come from the house paints.
So when we say household waste, what are we talking about?
We are talking about like the refuse. When you discharge your stuff outside, maybe even in a decomposing feed, then they are now carried.
So we're talking about like what, like vegetable peels, the normal things from the house.
Even the vegetable peels,
detergents.
The detergents.
Okay.
Yeah, and even now, if these vegetables had these estrogens like compounds, also like you are saying, as they decompose, the same thing will
be released.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And therefore, now this one is either picked by the animal that you are going to eat, or the crops that you are also planting, and eventually the whole problem comes in. It is not bad to have the urban farming because it's a complementary mechanism, but the issue here is should be clean urban farming. And now how do we regulate it to ensure that it is clean? That is where we are now.
So, of course, if you're just joining us in studio, we have with us Dr. Victor Tsuma, Professor Henry Mutembei, and Dr. Ambrose Kipyegon, who are telling us about a study that they carried out that showed that we may have fertility issues affecting human beings as well as our wildlife, as well as our animals along the Nairobi River. So now, you said one of the compounds found was estrogen.
Estrogen.
And that is coming from detergents and other things. What was the second chemical?
We actually tested for only two chemicals.
So estrogen and what else?
Estrogen and phenol. So we have alkyl phenol and estrogen.
So what does phenol do? Estrogen we kind of have understood.
Yeah, estrogen is understood. Prof, would you like to?
Okay, Tsuma,
shed some light?
Tell us about what does phenol do?
No, I think as Prof. Mutembei mentioned, generally these compounds are estrogen-like. So normally what they do, they are going to occupy the estrogen receptors. Mammals normally produce endogenous estrogens, which are the normal estrogens.
Okay, now let's make it a bit simple, because when you talk about now we're all wondering endogenous, who is that? What is that? So estrogen, at least from my little understanding, is a female hormone.
Yes, exactly.
So what happens when it is absorbed in the male animals and human beings?
So to make it simple, estrogen, as you've said, is a female hormone.
Right.
And it is in a class of hormones that are called steroids.
Okay.
And these steroid hormones, in the male, the equivalent of estrogen then would be testosterone.
Yes.
But all of them are produced from the same compound.
Okay.
And for hormones to work in the body, they have to attach to a receptor. So for purposes of this study, then what happens is when you have these estrogen-like compounds, they are going to attach to the receptors that should have attached the estrogen.
For the male, okay.
And then now the regulation of that hormone level is not going to be there because this compound now is strange to the body. And that is now how it is going to affect the fertility.
Okay. Now, of course, people have been questioning, of late people have been saying some of these things when they look very green, Kwanza the skumas they look beautifully green. Paka, you wonder, are they really okay? But let's get on to my colleague Bernard Maranga, who is speaking to David Ongare, who's a director at the National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA. Let's take a listen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ongare, for joining us. I am sure you have seen this report by the University of Nairobi indicating that Nairobi Rivers may be turning pigs, probably even men and boys, impotent. What do you make of this report?
I've not examined the report in detail, but you understand that in cities such as this one, various types of pollutants have that capacity to do that, especially if they contain any female hormones.
But you are a body that is in charge of protecting the environment, Mr. Ongare.
That is correct, and that's why we do the routine inspections to make sure we deal with issues of pollution. We have issued regulations, water quality regulations, which give the standards of the kind of water you can discharge into water bodies or into the environment. So we must look at the whole picture with regard to the breakdown in the sewerage infrastructure. Of course, the sewerage system for Nairobi was done over 40 years ago. Therefore, most of the establishments are not sewered and rely on individual facilities. And, most of them don't use the right system for disposal because these ones are supposed to be exhausted septic tanks periodically. But you find that many homesteads discharge them illegally to the environment, or others contract exhauster services which don't actually dispose them in the right places. So this is part of the challenge you see around.
Even what is more frightening is that that foods produced using water from polluted rivers could be harmful to people in the city.
We have taken many of these water and sewerage companies to court because of failure to discharge their mandates appropriately. But over and above that, we do surveillance, especially for people who are doing illegal discharges, and we have been able to take quite a number of them to court. But over and above that, we are also working with residents associations. We have entered into a partnership with the Kenya Alliance of Residents Association so that they help with the surveillance.
Tell us the stern measures that you are put in place or you are going to put in place to secure these rivers and protect human health.
One thing is that we are working with the county government of Nairobi because on the Nairobi City and Water Services Board in terms of rehabilitation of the sewerage system. The second thing, I told you that we have entered into very strong enforcement actions now, and we hope that this then should be a thing of the past.
Excellent. And that was my colleague Bernard Maranga speaking to David Ongare, who's a director at the National Environmental Management Authority. So maybe in your research, Dr. Ambrose Kipyegon, you said, was there direct proof of exactly where these pollutants are coming in through? Could it be through the sewage system, or where exactly are the pollutants coming in through to the river?
It's actually, as you said, through the sewage system. Most of the places have inadequate, if any, of sewerage system. The other way is when it rains, there is runoff from farmlands and also from garages in town. All those will end up in Nairobi River, and therefore polluting the river. Yeah.
How do we protect ourselves? I've just thought it's something you've taken for granted. When you go and buy meat, you don't exactly ask for an ID number from where this pig was brought up. So, or the food, like we're saying, the spinach looks so green and the spinach looks so beautiful. So, what are the things that Kenyans can do now? Of course, instead of just creating an alarm, what are the things that we need to do to avoid this situation?
I think first of all, I want to thank you, the officer from NEMA.
Yes.
Because for us, like I said, I'm the director of Wangari Maathai Institute for Peace and Environmental Studies.
Right.
What we have done from our side, we are trying to have some students get interested and understand what can be done actually to control this problem.
Right.
One way of doing it is environmental governance.
Environmental governance.
Governance putting structures where the university, the researchers, the like NEMA and the city council and everybody, including the resident associations,
so all the stakeholders,
we need to come together,
right,
and say there is a problem here, because in the beginning you mentioned about the increase in ovarian cancer
and prostate
cancer,
yes,
and breast cancer.
True.
People are saying they are there, but we have not gone to the root causes of why it is increasing. Like now, what we need to do is, first of all, understand this is a problem.
Right.
Number two, look at what is the existing structures, instruments that actually regulate the urban farming, which is not yet in quote.
So you don't have regulations on urban farming.
The urban farming is coming in. The only thing that is driving that person is I want to make a coin out of it.
Or to survive.
To survive. That's
right,
the issue.
Right.
But now, we are not saying it is bad. But how can we make it clean urban farming so that it doesn't actually predispose the human beings and the animals into this risk?
So when we talk about urban farming, we're not just talking about Nairobi River. That means we're going to look at even the sewage treatment areas.
Exactly.
In Mwihaki, you know, where people say the very good skumas that come from there.
Yes.
So we need to analyze where people are doing this farming and for and why.
Exactly. And it is not, if you look at the tributaries of the Nairobi River,
right,
from the Hapa, where now they converge into
so they
Thiwa,
come from
in
Ruaka,
the middle,
they come
Ruaka,
from everywhere.
the Ngong area and or something like that. Then they come in the middle, they are fewer. Then finally it is only one river.
Yes.
So in every bit, these chemicals are going down. And that one now, if you look at the swamps around there, the Ndomas and the others are, they are looking very nice, you know? And the Sukumawik and the others. So the issue is, if we can control what is going into the river, the same foods will be grown using cleaner water. Then we'll be okay. But the essence is to bring in now, like NEMA, the efforts NEMA is doing, in collaboration with the residents themselves, and we come up with instruments. Once we follow these instruments of regulation, then we'll have clean environment and then clean production of food and animals.
Now, before we get back, let me take you back a bit. At least for the fertility element, we have understood. Yeah. He's explained it. Dr. Ambrose has explained, literally the research, having to give the mice the water. Now, this finding on women and ovarian and breast cancer, what research was done to prove that?
Now, first of all, let me just explain how then these cancers come in.
Right.
One, I'll just put it in a very simple context.
Okay.
When the normal estrogens,
yes,
are produced in the body, they are also regulated in a normal way, so that
through the receptors.
So that the function
mentioned.
One function of estrogens is actually what we call cellular proliferation or cellular increasing numbers.
Yes, proliferation.
Proliferation.
Yes.
But now, I'll take it in this context. Imagine you are driving a vehicle.
Right.
A driver will put his foot on the accelerator.
Yes.
But he is now regulating. You cannot overstep to have an accident with the next vehicle.
Yeah.
But now, imagine now in the same accelerator where you put a big stone, the vehicle will just go, but it will go forever. It will not stop. Because usually the pendulum... The foot regulates the pendulum. Now, when the estrogen-like receptor sits on that receptor, it is mimicking the functions of the estrogen, but in an uncontrolled way.
Aha. So it comes and it increases.
Exactly. So now that proliferation, the cells will continue being increasing numbers. Eventually, it becomes cancer. Okay. That is actually the way it is in that. And even when you look at the control of breast cancer, you are actually given anti-estrogens. In other words, it's when things go AY, they get out of the control.
You try and manage them.
Yeah, so now, this is the same. And estrogens are very good in terms of if they are absorbed by the sukumas, and they will look very nice. They will be the best in the market. So
you're scared me. So from now on, if the skooma looks too good, I just see estrogen. Well, if you're just joining us in studio, we have with us Dr. We have Dr. Professor Henry Mutembei, Dr. Ambrose Kipyegon, and Dr. Tsuma, all from the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Nairobi, and we're talking about the findings.
He's a professor.
So, Professor, sorry, I am very sorry. I know we have tumerudisha cheo chini, upgrade tena. Professor Victor Tsuma. Now, you've talked about, I hadn't thought about that Nairobi River actually starts from the tributaries.
Yes.
And that means way up, like from Ngong Forest and all these other areas. So, did you trace it to the tributaries, Dr. Kipyegon?
Well, looking at where Nairobi River starts, you may find that one of the places is up in Kikuyu.
Right.
And to the Ondiri swamp, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the water there, they're a bit clean. But as you follow it downwards, you find at some places, by the time it gets to Chiromo, it gets dark. The water gets dark.
So is that because there do we have factories? Because I know before coffee factories were contributing. Where else?
Oh, sorry.
Where else was,
Mainly at this point, the main contaminants would be the discharge from households. So
definitely that is sewage, because if you come down Kikuyu towards Chiromo, that's where now from Kangemi down intensity.
And the slaughterhouse from, the slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
If you went around as you are on your way to Kawangware, you cross this. That's also another branch of the Nairobi River.
Okay.
At around 4 something, very early in the morning.
Right.
When the slaughterhouses are being washed.
Yeah. Ooh,
the blood and everything, even the blood. And the blood actually has those estrogens.
Right.
Yeah. So they actually poured into the Nairobi River. In fact, I was washing my car one time there, and the smell was like, what is? Then they told me that is from Dagolet slaughterhouse.
The other place is the Nairobi Dam. Where Nairobi Dam
where is. We now used to be where we now have Hyacinth.
Yeah.
Where you can walk on water.
Yes, there.
Okay.
And Nairobi Dam is surrounded by part of Kibera, isn't it?
Kibera, and yes, actually, it's a residential area as well.
So when you see the river crossing Mbagadi, at the
it foams. I mean, we've seen here, you see foam and everything.
It's actually black.
Yeah.
The water is actually black as it goes down.
So maybe we need NEMA to step in and do more about regulating, sewage and all these things.
Yes.
Because, as researchers, it's not you to check into this.
We just raise the...
You raise the concern.
Yes.
Now, let's hear the National Environmental Complaints Committee, what they make of this research we're discussing. And my colleague Bernard Maranga spoke to Dr. John Chumo, who is the committee secretary.
Thank you, Dr. Tsuma, for joining us. Is the National Environmental Complaints Committee aware of this pollution in our rivers in Nairobi, and that it has turned to be tragic to lives of animals and people?
One of our mandates is to check and receive complaints from the people of this country. And one of the complaints that we receive more often is the pollution of rivers across the country. And one of the most polluted river is River Nairobi because of the serious discharge of effluent from factories, from the industrial plants, and also from the buildings or the homesteads and the estates adjacent to these rivers. It's actually, some of it is actually poisonous, indeed, from the industries and also from people also who are actually growing crops across the riparian areas. They discharge a lot of chemicals which are actually poisonous, with a lot of mercury, lead, and such kind of chemicals.
Now, Dr. Chumo, there is a report that has been released by the University of Nairobi, which indicate that pigs and even men are turning impotent due to the consumption of this water. What should be the procedure of dealing with such a complaint?
It is unfortunate that one of the things that we are actually, investigating and also receiving as complaints from the people of Nairobi is the discharge of this effluent, which actually goes on to really have a negative effect. National Environment Complaints Committee, we are charged to get that kind of complaints, and currently, with several complaints that we've gotten, we are actually working very closely with KEMRI. We are also working closely with the Ministry of Health to ensure that we really get to know beyond reasonable doubt that the effects of people ingesting that kind of water resolve the problem of men or people using that water becoming impotent. Once we actually ascertain that it is true, then we should be able to ensure that the report is actually taken to National Environment Tribunal and also to NEMA to ensure that the people who are involved in terms of discharging such kind of waste are actually brought to book.
Now, that was Dr. John Tsuma, Secretary of the National Environmental Complaints Committee, speaking to my colleague Bernard Maranga. Now, he has said once this report is certified to be true. So what I need to ask you gentlemen here is, as part of this was the proposal from the research said that you needed to get a clearer picture and more tests needed to be done. But so have we certified it true, first of all?
First and foremost,
yes,
it's okay, every time somebody has to say it has to be certified true.
Right.
But I think what needs to be done, because for the animals, as we are speaking now, it is true.
Yes.
Because that one has
the
gone
tests
through,
are conclusive.
They are very conclusive,
right,
including testing that thing, the mice.
Yes, the mice and the pigs. Yeah.
That one was conclusive.
Right.
What we need now to do is what we have. We actually come up with what we call One Health approach. One Health is that you have the human doctors,
right,
the vets, and the environmental people coming together and saying, here is already bare truth of what is happening. So now what can we do to ensure that we stop this thing?
Yes.
And this one should also include the NEMA people and all that.
All the stakeholders.
All the stakeholders.
Yes. So
that if there is anywhere, needs to be a little bit clarified in terms of research.
Right.
Then we can be able to also have a national priority of what kind of research should be taking place in this country anyway. It's something like this one, which is threatening the human life and the animals. Then we need to have a national research fund, and then the NACOST.
Okay, who is NACOST?
NACOST is a National Commission for Science and Technology.
So are they in existence?
Yes, they are in existence.
So it's them to release the funds.
They release the funds so that now we can be able to say this. We look at now what the existing problems, because we have the existing problem of prostate cancer,
yes, breast
cancer,
and ovarian cancer, yes,
and now the impotence and the infertility that we are talking about here. Then we say, if Nairobi City Council or NEMA requires this kind of piece of evidence, then this research, that is our mandate from the university. This research is done.
Yes.
And we have postgraduate students, like we said, from the institute, which I am heading now.
Yes.
I already have put this to the master student and PhD student. One is now starting a study that is going to look at the existing regulatory mechanisms and those instruments. And what is also the people's knowledge, attitude, and practices on that. Because we also have to sift it. If you don't sift it, then I also want to just harvest my doma and put them in the market.
Yes.
We need also to create awareness so that this person knows it's not an issue of the coin they are making, but the lives they will destroy in the long run.
Now, one question that comes to mind, now that Dr. Andrew Kipyegon discovered this, first of all, the situation as it is there a dawa or something we can give to reverse the situation? Professor Tsuma, as it is, tumeona kuna shida. You know, when you say, hey, the roof is leaking, you put a hole, you patch it up. So now we've discovered these estrogens are causing the problem and the phenols. Can it be reversed? Is there something you can, like these people with the pigs, can they treat their pigs with something? Is there a chemical that can be given?
I think for now, there's nothing that is really drastic that can be done to reverse that.
So it's irreversible.
We'll recommend that the pigs probably be withdrawn from that, And again, that has to be a gradual process, because as we've said, this urban farming is a survival mechanism for people. And for you to stop people doing something, then you have to give them an alternative. You have to give them an alternative. But for us, we've created awareness. And then even just to add on to what Dr. Tsuma was asking, if the study was certified to be true, the mice experiments confirmed the findings in the pigs.
Yes.
And then this work also has generated 5 papers that have been published in peer-reviewed international journals, which means that even the experimental design actually confirmed that those findings are actually accurate. So the regulatory issues, I think, is going to be very critical going into the future, so that we have clean urban farming.
Now, for now, the biggest concern, once you hear there's a problem, fine, we need to create formulas and formulations and associations and do the research. For my listener who has had and is now going to be looking at those kumawikis 3 times and deciding to eat something else, how do we protect ourselves? What are the things we now need to be aware as people from Nairobi? It doesn't come with a label. I don't know where my skumas and the domas and the pork has come from. When I buy it from the butchery, I don't know. How can we try and protect ourselves?
In fact, you have put it very lightly. You cannot tell a skumawiki that has come from Jabini and the one that has come from Loai, for example.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the one that has derived from that one is even looking better than from the one that has come from the other side. The only issue here is, and the other unfortunate thing that I'm going to tell you, there is no treatment for it. Once you have cancer, now you have to undergo the chemotherapy and the others. So the only preventive measure is actually avoiding using this water in this urban farming. But as Professor Tsuma has said it, how then do you compel me, who is making a livelihood out of it, to actually stop it? So the issue is awareness.
So how do you protect me, the consumer, who is not the farmer? I am simply the one buying the things.
I will tell you how you can do it.
Is there something you can test?
Is like we are in catch 22, you can call it that.
Between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, because unless now you have traceability of where the food stuff is coming from.
Right.
This is the issue now, because now we are there. Let us admit the problem is there. But now, way forward is that we work together as stakeholders, and if it's going to be labeling the Sukumawiki from this is product of where. But of course, that one is again going to be like another circus, Yeah.
So, Dr. Tsuma, we have known what is the consumer going to do now? No, we are happy that this information has come out, but first of all, it's a very alarming thing when we're talking about future generations. Infertility is a very scary element, and cancer is even worse.
For now, I think as researchers, because we are supposed to address societal problems and come up with solutions, and it is good actually we found out that the problem is there, and as Prof. Mutembei is saying, the first step, of course, is admitting that there's a problem.
Right.
And then collectively with the rest of the stakeholders, we need to come together and find a way forward. So I think that is what we need to do going into the future.
Okay, now...
Maybe a simple comment.
Yes.
Because I did my PhD on the hormones and the male reproduction. And while one time I was doing a conference in the US, one of the professors there told me, what? When you go back to Africa,
right,
these are the issues you have to address, because these hormone-like compounds are actually there. And he told me the history of the US, how they actually started also doing, they had these kind of problems in their rivers early on.
Okay.
And concerted effort between researchers and regulatory authorities,
right,
the bodies, came up with a regulatory authority that was actually having the teeth to bite.
Yes.
That is what I'm saying.
Because they test the effluents and they find the companies.
And we work from the Wangari Maathai Institute, we work very closely with the NEMA. So I know they pick it up. But now, up to the implementation, that is where now we need to really have And let us also admit, it is not going to be a one-day thing.
No, it will take time.
It will take time.
Absolutely.
Where it will even involve including KEFIS.
Yes.
KEFIS is the one that tests chemicals within these food plants. Yeah? And now we are in the environment ourselves from our institute. We are also doing that and come with the governance and management.
Yes.
Those are the issues that really need to be taken.
Now, excellent. So, Dr. Ambrose Kipyegon, this was your project.
Yes, it was.
What is next? Sasa umeenda umefanya research, umetupatia habari ndio hiyo. Where next? What are you doing next?
Well,
I mean, now you've got your paper has done well. I'm sure you got good grades. Hey, what next? Are you going to forget about this, or where are you headed next?
Definitely. I'm not planning to forget about it. What I would like to do right now is to do awareness. Okay, now that this is what I found out.
He's a very young doctor.
Yeah, he's just got his PhD. You know, we were his supervisors.
Yes, he looks
so we
very young.
welcoming him on board, and we actually want him to take up this theme.
Make that his project.
Become his theme. Let his made his life from there now.
Okay.
Well, now that you mentioned, maybe this is a project we've been working on since when 2009, because in 2009 we were also doing a similar project on the reproductive system of the male.
Okay.
And then later on, now for the PhDs, when we decided to look at the impact of the environment on reproduction. And as I said, I'm not intending to now abandon it at this point. No. Maybe plans forward from now is to have forums like this.
Excellent.
For creating awareness. Okay, even though you've seen we may not have the solution as such,
but at least you have identified the problem and certified it.
Yes,
you've done your research. I was impressed. I didn't know we were able to use mice and what for testing. So I'm very proud of us today. I'm feeling really good that it doesn't take foreigners to come and give us such wonderful. It's a fact.
Yes.
So I'm really happy about that. Yeah. So I'm really grateful for that. So yes, we've had a very enlightening experience today. Yes, as you wind up.
Yeah. So
maybe what I can say as a way forward here.
Right.
What I see here is an opportunity. Sometimes you are told when you see a problem,
find a solution.
So me, I see an opportunity here.
Excellent.
The opportunity here is to bring all the stakeholders together.
Yes.
That's the first step.
Right.
Then also have a platform where funds are channeled towards the right direction of solution finding. And here, I would like also to say it is not an opportunity for blame game.
No, it is to find a solution.
This is because sometimes people come in, it's like now defending and that. But if we come together, the One Health concept are brought in. Actually, it is the newest concept in science today.
Yes.
Where people don't work in silos.
They work
NEMA
together.
work there. KEFIS work on their own. University, we work together in one.
You create a symbiotic.
Including the donors, bring in funds for solution for Nairobi, so that we can have clean environment and clean production of food
urban farming,
urban farming.
So this has brought to mind that maybe this could be a warning, since Nairobi people moved in a long time ago, that we need to protect the other rivers in the other parts of the country, so that the same things are not found there.
Yeah, exactly.
So Dr. Tsuma, winding up.
Prof,
Bole.
No, for us, I think going forward, research is one of our mandates, and we'll continue doing research, and we'll continue following this thematic area together with the other stakeholders, so that we can try to come up with solutions.
Excellent. So that was a very enlightening conversation this morning with Professor Henry Mutembei, Professor Victor Tsuma from the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, who was supervising Dr. Ambrose Kipyegon with his research and findings. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's nice to know the University of Nairobi is busy and researching. We hope you shall not be a stranger again. You shall bring us more news.
Thank you very much. The only thing I wanted to hand here is, first of all, to thank the authorities for the plastic bans. It is because the plastic is one of the things that carry the materials into the river. Because if you look at the liver, the plastics, and then now they will come and put that one together, concentrate it
so
for a long time, even without culling it or downstream. So to me, that is a good thing.